right side, and you can just type in your questions there if you also want to ask that way. Please reserve your questions till the end of each presentation. We will now do a roll call, which our district manager, Jesse Bodine, who's with us, will take care of for all of the committee members. So for the committee members, just say present when Jesse calls out your name. After that, Ellen and I will introduce the agenda items and the speakers in the order that they're on the agenda. So again, thank you all for coming.
Hi, everybody. Give me 1 second while I set this up, and I'll have us going down the line. I see a lot of folks are already here. So obviously Inga and Alan are here, right?
Present.
Present.
I'm going to just go down the line of folks on the participant list. This is easier that way for me. So Blake, are you here?
Here.
Okay. Great. Give me 1 second. I'm sorry.
David Warren.
Yeah, David Warren is not unmuting for some reason.
Oh, I'm
There we
here.
go. David, you're here, right?
Yeah, I'm here. It wouldn't let me unmute until maybe like 2 seconds ago.
Okay, great.
But thank you, Jesse, for doing this, by the way.
No problem. Josephine, are you here?
Here.
Great. Kit Tullerson, are you here?
I'm here, and fair warning, my 2-year-old is trying her best to Zoom bomb us.
That's okay.
Okay. Oh, hold on 1 second. I'm sorry. Maria, are you here? Maria, are you here? Sorry, Maria, are you here?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you.
Sorry about that. Wendy Gonzalez, are you here?
Yes, I'm here.
Leslie Murphy, are you here?
Here.
Great. I think that's everybody from the committee. If I missed anybody, if they can raise their hand, that'd be great. All right, I don't see any hands raised, so I think that's everybody we got. So you have a quorum to start.
We have our quorum, and our first speaker of the evening is Eric Botcher he's the Chief of Staff for Speaker Corey Johnson. If he would like to wave his hand so we can see him, and then go ahead, Eric. Thank you for coming. Except that he's muted.
He is muted. Just one thing, tell me if I'm wrong, Inga, did you give the instructions for the folks calling in, how to raise their hand calling in?
I did not for the calling in. I assume they use the chat, but how do they raise their hand?
So the way you're gonna, because they're not gonna be able to use the chat because if they're calling in. So the way you would raise, the folks who are calling in by phone, you're gonna use *9, which will raise your hand. It'll show up on our screen as a little blue hand raised, and then *9 will lower your hand. And we can manage that as well. All right.
There we go.
All right, so I'll unmute Eric. Eric, do you hear us? And do we hear you actually? That's more
Still
important.
muted. Eric's still muted.
Okay.
You're unmuted,
Thank
Eric.
you so much.
Sorry
Thank
about that,
you,
Eric.
Jesse. Thank you, Inga. Thank you, members of the committee. It's so great to see everybody on here during this very difficult time. On behalf of the speaker, I just want to give my condolences to everyone who's lost people in their lives. I know here in Community Board 4, a neighbor of Inga's and mine, Judy Richheimer, who died 2 weeks ago. It's still a shock to all of us. So it's a very difficult time, but we're all together. I will give a very general update. I know this is the ACES committee, but I'll sort of give a quick overview of what we're working on. And here in Council District 3, our amazing staff is all working overtime from home, getting a lot of phone calls from small businesses, individuals, not-for-profits, block associations, tenants associations, with every kind of issue you can imagine, from the obvious trying to apply for unemployment to fill out all the applications for grants and assistance, to the kind of issues that we hear about year-round that are still there. What we're focusing on in a big way is trying to reach the most vulnerable people in our district who are now at home, in many cases unable to go out and get food and without resources. And many of the people on this call, like Josephine and others, have been helping us with this project. We are calling seniors throughout the district, starting with the public housing, NYCHA Elliott Chelsea and NYCHA Fulton houses, and doing wellness calls and asking them, what do you need? Do you have food? Do you have medication? Do you have people looking after you? And it's been a really great way to connect people with the city services that are available, and just to make sure that people aren't slipping through the cracks. What keeps us up at night is the idea of, you have people who had home health aides and others who are no longer coming. What kind of fail-safe is there for those folks? So we're calling well over 1,000 seniors so far, and we're about to add several thousand more seniors to the list to get calls. And we have dozens of volunteers working with all our state and federal elected colleagues on this, and Community Board 4, Jesse and others. So that's something that I'm very excited about. And the idea is that people, they take a list of seniors and they stick with them for the duration of the crisis, and they call them at least once a week to check in on them. So it's something that is going to be ongoing. We are working with nonprofits and local institutions to get donations of food for the people here in the district. And I today am pretty close to getting some pretty sizable donations for some local individuals and corporations to potentially buy a large number of pantry boxes for people in the district that we'd be able to distribute to families and individuals who need food. And each one of these pantry boxes has almost a week's worth of food in it. So this is going to be, I believe, a very important part of keeping our people fed, making sure that people have sustenance during this period. And it's only going to get more difficult as more and more time goes by where people can't work. We're working on all the issues that we work on year round. Public safety, we're talking very closely with our local precincts every day to make sure that public safety is maintained. Things like graffiti that we're hearing about popping up throughout the district, trying to get a handle on that. We're working with local residents who have a lot of questions about homeless services. What's happening with homeless services during this time? That's a very complicated issue because you have many, many thousands of people who are living in communal living arrangements with bunk bed situations and many, many people sleeping in one room. And obviously it's not safe to do that right now. So many of them are being put in hotels and other kind of places where they can be in their own rooms. And it's something that we're working through with the Department of Homeless Services and others. Very important that it happen and very important that it happen in the right way. I just want everyone to know that, and that's just some of the local stuff. Obviously on the citywide stuff, the speaker is in daily communication with the mayor and the governor and his team about the citywide plan. And I believe that we're going to have Corey at the full board virtual board meeting. And I guess that's next week or so, where he can really talk about the global picture here, what the city's goals and plan is with respect to stabilizing the situation from a medical standpoint, getting the helping our small businesses and others get back to work, and getting the city ultimately back open again in a safe way. So that's stuff that the speaker will speak about when we have him on the Community Ward 4 board meeting. But I just want everyone to know that our office is here 24/7 for any issue that you have. Reach out to me, reach out to Carl, reach out to Matt Green. We're here to help. And I particularly want to say, if you know someone who's going through a tough time, who might be have issues with respect to food security and other things like that, please reach out to us and we'd like to help. So thank you again for having me on here.
Thank you, Eric. I have one quick question. I do see a hand raised, which is Alan's, but I'm going to jump ahead of him. Do you have a sense of any increased crime in our neighborhood? I'm not hearing any. I heard Christides' window broke in Chelsea. I don't know about our district. Is there an increase in crime?
So we asked each of our precincts this question, and they're reporting to us that crime, the numbers are down in a big way for obvious reasons, just because no one's outside. But I think in this unprecedented, very, very unusual situation, I think the things that are happening and that do happen, and I'm just speaking off the cuff here, I think that in some ways, some of these things are more visible, and people have expressed that when they're out on the street, there can be a feeling of unsafety because there's not eyes on the street. You don't have lots of other people around, and you can find yourself on a stretch of street and you're the only person there, with the exception of a couple other people. And that's a situation that we're almost never used to in New York.
Right.
So it is important that people exercise caution and care. And there have been, with all the stores boarded up, there's been more graffiti, and we're talking very closely with our precincts. But I would urge everybody to remember that if they witness a crime, that they should call 911, even if it's not the most serious of crimes, you can call 911, or you can call your neighborhood coordination officer. And that's something that that's information that everyone should have, who their precinct and neighborhood coordination officer is. And that's an officer whose cell phone is available to you. That's the cop on the beat that they want to bring back and have that familiar relationship with your local precinct. So that's something that everyone should have. And also you can reach out to us with any concerns too.
Okay. Do you have that listed somewhere on Corey's website for each precinct, who that coordination officer is?
Carl Wilson. Is Carl Wilson on?
I didn't see his.
Yes, he's on here. Okay. Yes, the different precincts have it on their websites.
Their website. Okay.
Yeah, and I just don't know that we have like all the precincts on one, but that would be a good thing to have for Community Board 4.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what
Yeah, Inga, we have it.
Okay, great. I've
We
never
have
looked
it.
for
On
it.
top of it.
It's for people
And,
to know
yeah.
in case they're looking for it.
Yeah, and we every month we send out the link to each of the precincts community council meetings that also has the website as to where the names and the emails of the NCO
Okay, so people
officers.
can go to our website and they'll see the list of the precincts and that coordination officer. And then I just have one more thing to say with the reaching out to the seniors for the wellness calls and the deliveries. Are you still looking for more volunteers?
We are looking for more volunteers. We have, at this point, where we have more volunteers than seniors, but that's going to change within the next 24 hours. We're going to get several, and John Mudd is dialing in. He's one of our volunteers.
Mm-hmm.
So that's going to change within the next 24 hours. So if anyone's interested in making those phone calls, please shoot me an email and we'll get you signed up.
Great, thank you. I know Alan Oster has a question, my co-chair, and David Warren. So I'm going to let Alan go first because he had his hand up first.
Thank you, Inga. Thank you, Eric. Thank you for all the work your staff is doing. I will say one thing about the neighborhood. I've noticed the 10th precinct is certainly doing a lot more perimeter driving and see more cars on the street in that. I wanted to turn to maybe if you can touch briefly on something in terms of education, being that the budget is going to get hit and there's already talk about where they're cutting. Can you speak anything at this point in terms of trying to hold the funding for a lot of these programs that seem to be hitting, especially our community in any way? And maybe it's too early for that, but maybe if you could just shed a little light on what you and the speaker are doing to hold that.
I'm really concerned about the budget. I'm not in the weeds on the budget, but I'll tell you that I'm really worried about what the budget is going to look like, because the huge loss in revenue across the board is going to require some really difficult decisions. And the budget the last few years has grown year over year. I believe something like 20%. I mean, a really big number. The budget's grown because of the increase in tax revenue has gone up and up and up. And we've been able to fund so many incredible programs like universal pre-K, and they've thrown billions of dollars at affordable housing and stuff like that. And so I'm really worried about what's going to happen. I think the guiding principle needs to protect, strongly protect the services that really serve the most vulnerable and people, the things that people really depend on. And I think education, some of the great programs that we have locally, we have to fight to preserve those. So I don't have an inside track on that. You know, Corey's and the council's budget negotiation team, they're working on that, but it's going to be, I think when we start coming out of this medical crisis that we're in, it's going to be very apparent very quickly how big of a financial crisis that we're in.
Understood. Okay. Thank you, Eric.
All right, so I'm going to call on David Warren next, but just while Jesse's unmuting, I just want everyone to know that we have some other elected official reps here. Matt Teague from Dick Gottfried's office. We have Maria Burlow from Brad Hoylman's office. Luke Wolf is here from Scott Stringer's office, and Emily, I'm not going to say her name right, Bartosek, I hope I didn't ruin that, from Linda Rosenthal's office. So if you have any questions for them, I'm sure they'd be happy to answer them as well. So go ahead, David Warren.
Hi, Eric. Thank you very much for your proactive reaction to all of this. I love the sailboat in the background, by the way.
Yeah.
My question is twofold, a suggestion. One is I saw on street blogs that there's certain people that are volunteering on their bicycles to do certain things. So if you can get a hold of that article, they would be able to do deliveries. And now I'm thinking in the future, because right now I'm mostly homeless shelter. Once in a while I go out on a job for my work because I work for the fire department. But mostly once we start to phase out gradually into not being at home, then we would be able to deliver to these people also. And I think there might be more of a need because as time goes on, people are going to forget about it. It's not the hot moment. So I was wondering if you can keep me in mind for that when when that happens. But also, if you could, like I said again with the Street Blogs article, find some of those cyclists who would be able to deliver. I don't know if it's just in the concentrated area of the housing projects or it's also in other parts of Chelsea and Hell's Kitchen, Corey's district.
Yeah, I saw that. That's a great idea to make sure that those bike messenger volunteers are included on our resource page. And I see Sharon here as well, who's been making calls. We have a list of resources that we call upon for the people who need groceries delivered. We also have some local volunteers who are right in the neighborhood who can go do. I've done some grocery runs. I actually brought some banana bread to people and some of my food that I made. It's great to be able to do that kind of stuff in the neighborhood, but there's so many great programs like the one you just talked about citywide. So that's the thing about this is, it's a horrible thing. Oh, the 7 o'clock thing's about to happen. But people are really coming through in a big way.
Yeah. Leslie Murphy has a question. Go ahead, Leslie.
Jesse,
Oh, you're not unmuted yet.
No, I know. Hold
Jesse's-
on, Leslie. Hold on 1 second, Leslie.
Hang on, Leslie.
I don't know where she went.
Yeah, she disappeared.
Oh, no. There she is. Got her.
Okay. There you go, Leslie.
Sorry about that, Leslie.
That's okay. There are a lot of private organizations, Eric, that are doing the food delivery. Are you guys?
Leslie, if you can hear us, your at least on my end is really
You've frozen.
you're frozen up. You might want to send your question via.
I'm going to write it in. I'm going to
Yeah.
write it in, and then you can read it.
Yep,
All right.
that sounds perfect.
All right. So you can go to someone else while I type away, I guess.
There are no more questions. I do have just one comment. I know Leslie's talking about, and Eric just mentioned other citywide agencies. I've been volunteering for the past probably 10 years for an organization called DeRote, which is on the Upper West Side. And they recently, within the last 2 years, started doing the East Side. They go down into the 50s. So meal deliveries, birthday calls, wellness visits, phone calls. That's an organization that's pretty big, and I've been involved with them for about 10 years now. Let's see, do we see what Leslie's chat yet? Not yet. Eric is muted. I don't know how he got muted, but maybe he muted himself. I think he went out to yell out the window.
We appreciate that.
Yeah. But yeah,
All right. I don't know if Eric is back.
he is. He's just
back.
still mute.
Okay.
I don't know why he's muted. Did you
Yeah,
mute yourself, Eric, or did Jesse mute you?
All right. Eric is unmuted.
Unmuted.
All right. Great.
This is my first day not clapping out the window.
I know.
So Leslie Murphy has written, says, food delivery, there are private agencies. Are you coordinating with them and using the meals set for public school students that are being unused?
So the public schools are distributing meals every day to both children and adults. They expanded it about 10 days ago to include adults. So after the families come and get meals for the kids, adults can come get meals, and they get 2 meals each day that they come. We're working with Meals on Wheels and God's Love We Deliver and many of the not-for-profit agencies. The big shortcoming of the meals from schools is that folks have to go get them, and maybe and many, obviously, if you're of a certain age, that you really shouldn't be going if you can help it. So we're working with the city and private agencies too, and each person has a different need. Some people might need just groceries that one time. Other people may need something like God's Love or Meals on Wheels, which they serve prepared food. Many people can't prepare food for any number of reasons, so they bring prepared food regularly.
Thank you, Eric. Okay, I don't see any other questions at the moment.
Wait, Leslie, I'm sorry, Leslie has a second, I'm sorry. So is the Holiday Inn on 48th Street being used as a temporary COVID housing?
The Holiday Inn on 48th Street is being used to house individuals who were in the shelter system, who are in the shelter system, who are have been or have potentially been or likely been exposed. The idea is to get them out of the communal settings when they're in rooms with lots of people and to have them in rooms. They are being brought their meals in their rooms. What's important to us is that this be, it's very important that it's done. It's essential that that's done, but it's very important to us that it's done well. And we are strongly pushing to get increased staffing and security outside to make sure that people are observing social distancing and PPE guidelines. And it's very important that that happen, and that's going to take robust staffing and supplies and enforcement across the board. And I've actually spent probably the majority of the day today on this issue, working closely with Jesse and El Kafirs and others to make sure that this is that this is done well.
Eric, just to confirm, are you saying, because Leslie asked about the Holiday Inn, just not that it, actually really doesn't matter too much, but just so, because we went back and forth before in our call before whether it was the Holiday Inn or another location. Are we confirming that it's the Holiday Inn now?
It's the Holiday Inn and the right next door, the Comfort.
Got it. Thank you.
Inn. But again, the city is, they're very, they this is sensitive stuff. At the same time, it has to be done. It has to be done well. and that's what we're working hard to ensure.
I think we have 2 more questions. John Mudd, did you have your hand raised?
I don't have a hand raised for John Mudd. I do have a hand raised for Dara.
Dara, okay. I saw John's hand raised, but then it went down. John, did you want to ask a question? I think he does.
He needs to raise his hand.
Talking.
Well, can we move on to Dara while we wait?
Let's go to Dara.
Hi, Dara, you're unmuted.
Hi there. On a different subject, I was wondering if you have updated information on voting by mail. I'm wondering if it's the same absentee ballot that's currently available, or will there be something new and specific?
That is a very good question that I will get the answer to and report back. Jesse, how could we get that answer to Dara?
Dara, if you want to, I can put my email in the chat section, and you can send me an email about it, and then I can loop you back in with Eric and Corey's office.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
And I'll just do that for everybody. So, if you have any follow-ups, you can always just chase me down.
Yeah.
All right, and
You
then
can
we,
do something on an update, Eric, right?
I'm sorry?
You can always do something on an update on some of the updates that you send out.
Yeah, Corey
Yeah.
sends out a weekly
yeah,
newsletter, and that would be a good blurb to put in there. The election stuff seems to change every time I check, but I would imagine that for the June election, that will now include, I believe it'll include more than just what it was intended to include. I would hope that the absentee ballots would be updated to include every election that's currently on the ballot for
right.
June.
Would we put it on the
Matt Ty
website?
has
Matt
his,
would probably, Matt's here, Matt T.
Yeah, Matt has his hand raised, so as soon as you're done, we will.
Sure.
You were
So-
unmuted.
So the governor had said that for absentee ballots, anyone would be able to send in an absentee without an excuse. Typically, to get a ballot in the past, you have to print out a form from the Board of Elections website, mail that in, and then you get the ballot mailed to you. The governor just said, I think it was the end of last week, that they would create an online application to directly request a ballot to kind of skip the whole process of sending in an application for it. That isn't up yet, but I would expect it would most likely be up probably sometime in the next month. He hasn't given a specific date, but once that's up, it will be much easier to vote via absentee in the June primaries.
Thank you, Matt.
And Dick Godfrey's office sends out Dick does a weekly also, doesn't he?
Yes,
Yeah.
and we'll definitely include that information as soon as it's
Right.
confirmed.
So everyone, you can get on all of the electeds' weekly updates. I know they're all doing it, as well as Gail. But you can just log on to their site and you can get on their email list and you'll get all the updated weeklies. I don't see any more questions unless you have them in the chat room, Jesse.
no, I think we're all questioned out on this topic. We can move
Okay.
on to the next topic. Eric and Matt, I'm going to just mute you for now. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so our next presentation is from the Department of Education, an issue that we've been dealing with, and just the whole city's been dealing with, and that's students in temporary housing and also the meals. So I see that Michelle Gugelli is here. Thank you. And thank you for all the hard work. It's been a process. It's been quite a work that the EOE has been up against. So we appreciate all the hard work you're doing. So take it away, Michelle.
Thank you. I also have my colleague Stephanie here who's going to chime in a little bit on meals. But yeah, thank you all. Thanks for having us. And, we appreciate the hard work that you're doing to support your communities as well. I was on a call with the Chancellor this morning in which he reminded us that San Francisco starts remote learning today. And we have been doing remote learning for now 4 weeks. So we transitioned the entire system over to something completely new in a very short span of time. We did it for the sake of our children and for the sake of our families, and we are truly building as we go. And so we appreciate all of our communities and advocates who are building with us. I want to give a couple of quick sort of general updates, and then I can dive into the questions that were asked. First thing is that I'm sure you saw, and for those of you that are on Twitter, saw a little bit of confusion. DOE's school buildings are closed through the end of the school year. We are making every effort to, reopen in the fall. And so for now, for the safety of our children, of our staff, we are closing our school buildings. We've made 5 commitments with relation to that closure for the rest of the year. First things first is we will have an internet-enabled device in the hands of every child who needs it by the end of April. We will continue to make it more possible for parents to ask and have their questions on remote learning answered, either by calling 311 or calling some of our other lines to get support. We will continue to invest in instructional resources and enrichment programs to support students. We are again building this as we go in some ways, but we are continuing to make sure that our most vulnerable don't fall further behind. We are going to be supporting every high school senior and ensure that they're supported through graduation. As I'm sure you saw, the June regions were canceled. We are currently putting in the process of developing additional guidance on promotions, as well as how our seniors are going to be supported on the grading front. Those updates we are hoping to release this week. And then of course we are going to hopefully emerge ready to open in September. So moving on to sort of our vulnerable populations, most notably our students in temporary housing. We have, Apple was incredibly generous in providing us 300,000 internet-enabled iPads that are being distributed to families who apply for them or who need them. Families can apply for a device per child. So I know that there has been a lot of talk around families only having one device, needing to share it between multiple children. Families should request a device per child and they will receive as many devices as they need. We wrapped up, so all of our students who are in Department of Homeless Service, DHS shelters, have received iPads. All of the iPads are internet enabled. Then we also got a lot of questions because as we transitioned to remote learning, schools were distributing their devices, the ones that they had on hand, and those devices were not necessarily internet enabled. The Apple devices that are going out are all internet enabled, so families do not need Wi-Fi in shelter to access them. Students in temporary housing will receive their iPads by the end of April if they haven't already. Families can email school devices at schools.nyc.gov to ask about the status. There is also a phone line through which families can fill out the survey to get a device or to check on the status of their device. Or if you have families who are asking, feel free to email me, feel free to email Stephanie. We will check on the status of the device itself. Our shelter assistants and our staff who are in shelters, our STH liaisons, are working incredibly closely with Central to continue to develop supports for these families. We know that the digital divide was a problem before this all started and is only more of a problem now. And so we are working really hard to try and bridge the digital divide by training up our shelter staff, by making sure that our schools are supported, and making sure that shelter staff are equipped to also help families walk through the setup of the device, walk through signing the loan agreement, and walk through getting their children online for remote learning. You know, it is not an easy task because every school is different. Prior to this, schools had a lot of independence, and they still do, and so we're working really hard to make sure there's coordination as we get centrally distributed iPads to these families, that these families are then getting online with their schools and online on their school's remote learning platform. Which, important to note, we are no longer using Zoom, so we are transitioning schools who were using Zoom over to other platforms, primarily Google Classrooms. And so, you know, we continue to work really hard to make sure that we are filling in the gaps. But For any sort of escalations or questions, feel free to reach out to my team and we'll connect directly with the team who are working on supporting students in temporary housing. The priority order for receipt of device is students in temporary housing, students with disabilities and IEPs, multilingual learners, students who are learning English. That does not mean that if you are not one of those things, you don't qualify for a device. We're hoping to get a device in the hands of every family who needs it, but that is how we are prioritizing the distribution. And we are hoping to wrap up on students in temporary housing as soon as we can. So I'll just pause there, Jesse. I don't know if there are questions that you've sent over that I have not yet addressed. I think I see here sort of tutoring and academic support questions. So we are actively in the process of developing resources for families on how to support their children through remote learning. That includes partnering with Google to create tutorials in other languages for families who speak languages other than English on how to use Google Classrooms. We are also, for students who have not yet received a device, they should have received or be receiving instructional packets, which are to kind of bridge so that there is instruction happening while the device is in transit. And continuing to know that families are balancing a lot right now, and that many families, I'm sure some of you on this call have are now not only workers, parents, but also teachers and home educators. So all of the resources that are currently developed are at schools.nyc.gov/learn-at-home. And we are continuing to roll out trainings. Our Office of Family and Community Empowerment has been actively working to train parent coordinators, to train parent leaders on basic tech support and accessing remote learning. We are doing the same. Actually, we're hoping to extend those trainings to community-based organizations very soon. And we're continuing to hope to put out more resources for families who are suddenly also educators during the regular school day. So I'll pause there for any more questions. And I will preface too, sorry. Stephanie and I, being out of community affairs, are sort of jack of all trades, master of none. So we know kind of enough about a lot. And so any of your questions that we can't answer because we're not in the weeds of those things, we'll make sure to refer back and get an answer from a person who is doing the work. So I will just sort of ask for your forgiveness there.
Okay, thank you very much. A lot of information, Michelle. Josephine, you have a question. Jesse will unmute you.
Hi, Michelle. How are you? Thank you for all of that information. So one of my questions is are the enrichment centers that were open for first responders, their children, will students in temporary housing have access to those? Because, you know, a lot of our students, especially in CB4, are housed in hotels. And so they really don't have the kind of space in the cramped rooms to do any kind of studying at all. So is that a possibility?
Yeah, REC eligibility, REC being the colloquial, we love acronyms at the DOE. So we are continuously evaluating the eligibility for RECs. It is a decision that we make jointly with City Hall, as well as in accordance with the governor's guidance. So there are kind of a lot of factors at play. And I think what's happening is we started with kind of the narrowest universe and have been slowly expanding out as we evaluate the capacity of the RECs, because we of course have to also keep the most bare bones staffing possible that will keep everybody safe. We also have to make sure that students are able to keep 6 feet apart, which means incredibly small class sizes. So we have to continuously be keeping those factors in, and also policy making in conjunction with City Hall in order to expand the eligibility. We recently expanded to restaurant food workers, delivery workers, and pharmacy workers, as well as I'm losing the term for it, but residential building staff, so doormen, supers, etc. Once we get a gauge of what that adds to our numbers, we will continue to evaluate expanding. That being said, what I will say is that families who think they should qualify for a regional enrichment center, who have an extraordinary need, or have a need and think that they should qualify should submit the application. which is online.
Okay. And just my other follow-up question, or actually two questions. Is there someone actually from the DOE, like I think you mentioned the Students in Temporary Housing Liaison,
Mm-hmm.
Is there social workers? Is there actually somebody from the DOE in each shelter site that can actually help with some of these academic issues? Because a lot of our parents, you know, have a middle school. I mean, they stopped going to school in middle
Yeah.
school, and they don't have this technological background. So have you been placing people in the shelters to help with that?
Yeah, so I can get a more precise answer about whether it's every shelter, whether or not we have someone in every shelter. I'm not 100% sure on that front. The only reason that I think it's a question is I know that we have people in DHS shelters, but in terms of the kind of broader universe, I'm not entirely sure. So I have to confirm. But I do know that our shelter liaisons, who are sort of shared employees with the DOE, have been equipped with resources to help walk families through remote learning, to help walk them through instruction, to also be working with families' schools, right? Families should be receiving support from their parent coordinators, from their teachers, from their principals, in the same way that they would be if their children were in the building. So that's also another layer of supports families should be receiving. I know that Erin Lester from the Office of Students in Temporary Housing is in daily communication with over 500 students in temporary housing liaisons, with issue escalations, with questions, with training requests. So I can get the exact number of how many there are and whether they're in every shelter, but I do know that we're moving at the speed of light to equip them to help families, knowing that these are the families who most likely have a digital divide, are going to potentially struggle with delivering instruction. So not delivering instruction, but, you know, helping their children through it. So.
Yeah, I know you guys are doing a lot. Just one final question. So the point of contact, like if a family was having issues, they should just go to their original school. I mean, not go, but contact the parent coordinator there or whoever was handling it at the original school. That's what they should do.
Yes, and if families have not, families should have received outreach from their schools by now and should have contacts for people in their school. If you know of families who have not been contacted by their schools yet or do not have contact information for their schools, please send them our way and we'll be happy to connect them. We have heard of families who are struggling to get in touch with their schools, and so we are happy to facilitate that. I would also say our superintendent's offices remain a lifeline in the same way that they were before. So if and when families are potentially having questions at their school, need additional support, you know, they can always still contact their superintendent's office and ask questions or ask for help.
Thank you so much.
No problem.
Thank you, Josephine. David Warren, you have a question. You have your hand raised. David?
Hi, yes. Thank you so much for what you're doing. You're way ahead of the curve, which is much noticed and appreciated. I have two questions. One might be out of your pew. The first one is what's going on with the laundry services for those children without homes and their families. And the second one, as I said, might be out of your pew. I think it was one of the meetings, the ACES meetings, they were talking about construction going on. I believe it was at the Fashion High School. Somewhere there was one of the high schools that was doing a lot of construction where it was disturbing the neighbors. And I'm wondering if now that this is going on, because it was being done at night, in the middle of the night, now that it's going on, maybe they can do some of the construction during the day and not, so when we come out of this, they're not doing construction at night. The site will be completed. Now, I don't know if you'll be able to answer that or not. Once again, thank you.
I can follow up on the laundry question. It's actually a great question and I don't know the answer. So I will follow up. In terms of construction, that's an interesting question because it lives with the School Construction Authority as well as the contractors that we subcontract to build buildings or to do work on buildings. I don't know that we necessarily determine their building schedules. So we can follow up with the STA, but I'm happy to pass it along, but I can't say I know the answer. That is quite far out of my wheelhouse.
Okay. Thank you, David.
David, I can, real quickly, this is Jesse.
Yeah.
David, I can answer some of that too. Most of the SCA projects, because of the basically the suspension of non-essential construction have stopped. In terms of the specific site, we can find out, but I know a number of them have, gone to almost, full stop at this point.
Yeah, and I know it. I actually just know colloquially that at Fashion, it's if the question is about fashion, the work that they're doing is they were not building a building from the ground up. I think it was sort of renovation and upgrade work. So I would be surprised if they were continuing that work at Fashion, but I'm happy to follow up on it.
Okay, moving on. Maria, you have a question.
You're unmuted. We can hear you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Michelle, one of the questions I had was, you mentioned the priorities of the students who are receiving a Wi-Fi enabled device. If you could just say that again.
Yeah, it's students in temporary housing, students with disabilities, and temporary housing is a pretty broad category here. So it includes families who are doubled up, living in shelter. So housing and stable, I would say, follows under that umbrella. Students with disabilities, and English language learners, so students who are learning English.
And I guess my other question is, I don't know if you can answer this, but just out of curiosity, where do children in foster care fall in that priority list?
I believe that foster care falls under temporary housing. So I think that they do fall under the priority umbrella.
Okay. And my other question is, you mentioned that you were, that we could email you if we needed to.
Yeah, I'll put it in the chat.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Maria. Kit, you have a question? Or more?
I think at least two.
Okay.
Just thank you, Michelle, for everything you and everyone else at the DOE is doing. Obviously incredibly important and very hard work. I was wondering if you could speak to the current thinking on promotion, especially in early elementary. I know that schools have started to take attendance, and there's a difference between quote unquote attendance and actually meaningfully completing academic work. But what is the current thinking on the criteria for a student to get credit for this school year? The reason why I'm most interested in early elementary is because those are the grade levels where if a student is held back because they're not yet on track, can actually make a meaningful difference in the trajectory of their educational attainment.
Yeah, so I unfortunately can't speak terribly publicly about our thinking around promotion. I would say stay tuned. We are hoping to release additional guidance on this and grading in the next week or so, because of course they are also obviously very closely tied. I do know that the chancellor is not a big proponent of holding students back. Data-wise, it is not proven to help students advance further later on. So I know that our biggest top line here is that we are not going to be penalizing students for resources that they did not have because of a global crisis. We do have students who have gone weeks without devices, who have gone weeks without the ability to engage in remote learning with their school. That is not something we can penalize students for. So I think we're thinking really creatively about promotion, and also thinking, what I will say is in the spirit of grace, of having grace for our student and our families going forward. And of course, for graduation requirements and some of the bigger picture pieces, again, regents, I know that's older grades than what you were talking about. That is something that we have to work closely with the state on. And so they have released a little bit of information, but for our piece of the puzzle, we're hoping to get more we're able to say publicly within the next week.
Appreciate all of that, and would encourage you and the team to take a closer look at the research, especially around K and 1, in terms of what promotion when a student is not on track results in. If you zoom out as a generalization, I think what you said was accurate, but is not actually capturing the nuances of the research around promotion.
Yeah, I think we're happy to take it back.
So then my other question is, I heard you say that the commitment is through the end of the school year, school buildings will remain closed. Mm-hmm. Does that mean that there's a possibility of or multiple summer sessions? And how is the DOE thinking about both diagnosing kids and adjusting programming at the beginning of next year, knowing that while a lot of thoughtful and really hard work is going on, realistically what we're doing is mitigating extended summer slide. And so it's unrealistic that students are going to be on a similar trajectory to where they would have been. And so is the DOE thinking about summer and summer sessions as an opportunity to address that, or targeting the beginning of the school year and thinking about adjusting the strategy for that?
I think short answer is both. I think we are already thinking and strategizing towards September. We know realistically that we will have to be providing additional supports over the summer. What that looks like is going to be dependent on what the city looks like. You know, it's going to be dependent on whether we're under as tight restrictions as we are currently, or whether there are more opportunities for students to leave their homes and to not be doing work remotely over the course of the summer. And then once we reopen our doors in September, I think it would be unrealistic for us to not think we're going to have remediation work to do, particularly for our most vulnerable families. So I think we are actively thinking towards it. The nitty-gritty lives in the office of our chief academic officer. So I'm happy to follow up with more information once we have more updates on the kind of pedagogical work that we're thinking about doing. We have not announced anything about summer learning yet, but I know that all of those structures are being actively built.
Good kid. One more. Go ahead, kid. Shoot.
No, somebody muted him.
No. Oh, got muted. Poor guy. Hold on.
Might be for the best when I get muted.
There you go.
Last question, I promise. Knowing that it's conceivable that we would come back to school, whether that's in the fall or some other point, and we may find ourselves in a situation where schools need to close or partially close. How is the DOE thinking about capturing what's working at the classroom, the school, the system level, so that if we have to go through this horrible ordeal, which hopefully we do not again, some of the things that are really like the bright spots can be replicated and scaled?
Yeah, so I think it's also something that is being thought about. The benefit of, I think, being on primarily digital communication is that a lot more of what we do is on record. A lot more of what we do is in writing. You know, people are not physically meeting. So, but I think we are already trying to memorialize best practice, because the system is going to be like this for longer than we thought, and schools are catching up. And so there is an element to which we are collecting and memorializing, particularly from remote learning, the best practices that we're seeing on the ground so that we know how to do this better going forward. We actually just released a survey for parents and families on remote learning so that they can provide their feedback on what's working, what's not working. So that's going to be a huge stepping stone for us in terms of learning and moving forward, and also keeping on the record what worked and what didn't work. I honestly think, you know, to be honest with you, we could do more, and we will continue to do more, thinking about how to make a living record of this work. I think the work is moving very quickly, and so that can sometimes make it a challenge to kind of pause and say, okay, let's make sure that we are recording what best practices are and what we could do better going forward. But I think the survey is a huge step, and we'll continue. As we have more breathing room, I think we will continue to do that more and more.
Oh, thank you. All right. Thank you, Michelle. Stephanie is on, and she'll be speaking on meal plans.
Yeah, I think Stephanie's going to talk, but I think she may be.
Yeah, no, I got her. I got her.
You got her?
Yep.
Hey, hi everyone.
Hi.
Thank you so much for having us. My name is
Thank you for
Stephanie.
being here.
I work with Michelle also in the community affairs team, and I'm a borough manager. So I'm also going to add my email, and feel free always to reach out to me with any additional questions or concerns or just feedback. But yeah, a little bit about meal plan, or just meal distribution, which we touched on a little bit earlier, came up in the conversation earlier. You know, the first week when we closed all schools, as many of you might remember, we were distributing meals in all schools across the city. That model ended after that first week. And, you know, for the last couple of weeks, we've been distributing meals through our 400 plus meal hubs across the city. You know, if anyone's interested in knowing where those like hubs are, there's a locator, like a meal hub locator on our website, which I'll also share in the messaging board, that will give you kind of like a list of meal hubs, which are schools in the area. And as we touched on earlier, right now, the way that we're working is that every individual who comes and needs food can get up to 3 meals per kind of like assistance. So every time you go per day, you can get up to 3 meals. From 7:30 in the morning till 11:30, families with children are prioritized. And then from 11:30 to 1:30 p.m., adults can come and, regardless of whether you have a kid in the school system or not, you can also access those 3 meals per day. If there is any issue with any meal hub that is listed but is not giving food for whatever reason, or there's an issue for someone like accessing the meal hubs that are listed, please feel free to email me and we can kind of help troubleshoot. In addition, something that I've been hearing and I think was mentioned earlier is that there's a confusion around how many meals you can get per visit. It's 3, so you can get up to 3 meals per visit. And yeah, so that's a little bit about that, but I'm happy to open it up to questions now if anyone has any questions around meal distribution in particular.
Any questions? No one's got their hand raised. No?
John Mott has a question.
John?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Okay. Go ahead, John. Go on.
Okay, cool. Hi, Stephanie. Actually, I was doing some research on this whole meal thing. I just thought you could help me. I was trying to put some details together. As Eric told you, we're kind of doing this call-in, wellness check. From what I understand is, oh, by the way, what you were saying about the meal hub, is that food coming from City Harvest? Who's feeding the meal hub exactly?
So where the food is coming from?
Yes.
So the meals are being prepared in the school buildings, right? So a lot of the schools are meals that would have been, like are packaged to go, but would have been served in the schools. Okay. So I'm not exactly it's coming. I don't know where that usually came from, but it's using some of the resources and materials that we already had for school.
Okay, so they're actually cooking it in the schools?
Yeah, they're preparing it in the schools. Like, I don't think there's like deep, preparation for a lot of the meals, but yeah, they're getting prepared in the school building.
What I would say as an addition here is that it works the same way, for example, our free summer meals program works. So the operations looks almost exactly the same. Obviously staffing is a little more spare, but it is the same food provision model.
Okay.
As summer meals.
And they cleared this up for me. I sometimes I see there's a few different programs that they seem to merge in together, like for instance the DIFTA and then you've got the Access and DIFTA is really the same thing, correct?
I'm probably going to have to follow up on that because I'm not totally sure.
Yeah, it looks like you can access DIFTA through Access, but they've got those contacts, of course, the numbers, and it looks like they're all the same, but they're laid out in the computer world separately. And and then also the map you have there. One of the maps is very. It doesn't have much information. It's got the address and it's got, like, for instance, a church, the pantries I'm talking about, the map, where to go find your meals, and they have no contact number, hours, or anything. It's almost as if it's unfinished.
So the hours are uniform throughout. The hours are, I believe it's 7:30 to 1:30. It might have changed as we switched over to providing meals to everybody. But the hours are uniform. And the reason that there is not a contact information and there isn't a phone number is actually because the staffing in these sites is incredibly spare. It is literally just food workers, folks who are cleaning up, and school safety agents. So there is not a person to answer the phone. And so I know that it feels unfinished, and I think we're working actually on the user experience. It got developed really rapidly, and so we're working on making it a little bit prettier, a little bit easier to navigate. But there are actually some reasons there, and the hours are uniform. And if and when a meal hub is closed, it is likely closed for cleaning and disinfection, and they have gotten new signs that are clearer about that fact, so that there isn't any confusion. But yeah, there are some things about them that are uniform.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like I went on there and it's, for instance, even Metro Baptist Church was even listed. If you put in your zip code and address, nothing, it just yeah, it doesn't really say anything. But it's very clear as far as your hours on the other things. On the I know I have a few, but I'll email them to you.
Sure.
Cool.
I'll let you check my list out and see if you can help me out with it if there's any confusion with the list. Yeah, that'd be great. Thanks.
We have a question from Maria, please. Maria, did you have a question? You had your hand? Yeah. Jesse.
Yeah, she did. She got bounced out for 1 second. Give me one moment.
Maria, you hear that? Bounced.
While she's bounced, I do have a question.
Okay.
I have a question regarding what are you doing? What are they doing to help seniors, graduating seniors? This came up at another call we had with another school. What kind of help is there for graduating seniors who will be graduating this year?
Yeah, so we've committed to providing one-to-one support for graduating seniors. What that looks like is probably going to change by school, but it is a commitment that we made based off of the announcement that we would be closed through the school year. So that support, you know, we're again, as we figure out promotion and graduation requirements, that support is going to necessarily change. Some of those things are still being hammered out, and I'm happy to deliver more information as soon as we have more. Again, the pedagogical work there lives with the CAO's office, so we're happy to pass along announcements and guidance that they provide there. The commitment to one-to-one support for graduating seniors is fairly new, so what it looks like, we'll have to keep you posted.
Okay, so it hasn't started yet.
I mean, schools should be supporting their students, I think, is the short answer, but also because we do not totally know what graduation and promotion requirements as well as grading policies quite look like. So they are being supported, but in terms of the specific support of here's how we move you to graduation, here's how we move you across the finish line, that is necessarily going to be impacted by what we decide on how they graduate and how they get graded going forward.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Maria. Jesse. Yeah,
yes, we can.
Go.
Okay. So my quick questions are Stephanie or Michelle. I don't know who can answer this. I'm curious about the food again. Michelle, you were mentioning the food is kind of like the model is kind of like the food that the students get in the summertime.
Mm-hmm.
And throughout the school year where it's made and it's placed in a tray. I'm wondering what it looks like.
They're, from my understanding, they're kind of like box lunch because they can't eat in sight. It has to be it's grab and go. So they are packaged meals that are set up for grab and go.
Are they packaged meals that need to be warmed up or just?
No.
Oh, okay. And then I'm just kind of curious. I don't know if you can really answer this for me, but I'm going to ask anyway. I was just curious about like safety protocols that are in place when distributing the meals.
Yeah, so same social distancing protocols. We're asking people to keep a 6-foot distance. Our workers are gloved up, you know what I mean? They are just handing meals over. And it's, from my understanding, very quick and easy. Families go, they get meals, and then nobody lingers. In terms of if and when there is a diagnosed case, if and when there is any notice that someone has come into contact, the entire site is shut down, deep cleaned, disinfected, and then reopened the next day. And the same goes for our rec sites.
Oh, wow. Okay, and then I'm curious, has there been an increase or a decrease in people coming to get the meals?
From what I understand, we're seeing there was a pretty exponential increase in the beginning, and we continue, but right now we're sort of at a fairly static rate. I think there's a lot of things people take into account, but every day I hear stories about people needing the meals, people getting the meals. So I believe the last number that I received, we were serving around 100,000 meals a day. And I don't know that that has changed from my understanding. I think it has plateaued a little bit. But
And that's
we of course,
city.
huh?
100,000
across the city. Okay. Yeah. And I would imagine we have seen an increase as we expanded to serve adults. We were not turning anyone away before. Right. It's just the formal policy now that we don't turn anybody away.
And the adults can come between 1:30 and
11:30 to 1:30.
11:30
to 1:30. And again, this is like, again, we're not turning anyone away, but like we encourage, families with children to come from 7:30 to 11:30 and 11:30 to 1:30 for adults.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Michelle, before you go, and Stephanie, before you go, I wanted to follow up with something that a kid brought up, and that was the summer school thing. And I don't know if you can answer this, but since our district, our community has a huge density of students in temporary housing, is there, and I don't know if where the planning is yet, or if it's going to be any planning for summer, where would you suggest, if you can answer, where would you suggest that we kind of reach out to in the DOE world in terms of trying to get some help over the summer, or some continuous, as Kit was discussing and asking about, for our students at least in temporary housing?
So I would
put you on the spot on this if you I don't.
Yeah, I would stay tuned for the guidance that we're going to be releasing around summer instruction in terms of getting additional summer resources. It's a good question, and I think we'll ask. I think right now we're still figuring out what all of this looks like in a lot of different ways, and so broadly it will be coordinated out of the CAO's office. We can follow up with our Office of Students in Temporary Housing to see what additional supports are being considered there. I'm sure our community schools and our community school CBOs are working on this. So we'll just follow up with more information as we have it, as well as who is the best person to talk to. Knowing as well, as it was mentioned in the beginning, that our budget is not giving us a whole lot of flexibility for additional spending.
Understood.
Which is a very real reality.
Yeah.
Alan, we have a question from Leslie, who just typed it in because she has her issues with the Zoom right now. So Leslie asked, there were reports that since the city overestimated the amount of meals expected to hand out, they were throwing away large amounts of these meals. Is that still the case, or is the city cutting back on the meals prepared?
I think that we're actively evaluating the numbers on how many meals we prepare and distribute. I'm happy to follow up with our Office of Food and Nutrition Services to see what that scale back specifically looks like. But it's, we did expect major demand, and part of the reason that we were able to expand formally because we have the capacity to do so. So I can follow up with the specifics.
Thank you.
All right, cool. Well, thank you very much. Very informative. I'm going to turn this back over to Inga, but before I do, at this point, we generally ask if there's a letter that folks want to put out. Does somebody want to make a motion to that? Do we want to leave it alone? Do we have information, or I'll throw that out to the committee folks, and also to Inga and Jesse. I don't hear anything. Going once, going twice. So we'll leave it as is.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe just a thank you. We'll send a thank you note.
I'll take it. Yeah. That's my favorite way to end.
All right.
Can I just one thing? We do have a number of people who are calling in by phone, so I just wanted, or just a handful actually.
Oh, okay.
I just want to make sure that if the folks from calling in from phone, again, you press *9 to virtually raise your hand. It shows up on our screen. So if you do have a question, just press *9 and we will then unmute you.
Okay. So moving on to Heritage of Pride to present on their 2020 March route and operation. We have Zoe Goring, Heritage of Pride. I don't know where you are on this page.
So Inga, I'm sorry, I sent this to Alan, but because I thought he was doing the next one too. David Correa, who's I believe the executive director, would like to speak first before
Wonderful.
Zoe.
David,
Oh.
I see your name on there. If
Yep,
just
so I will unmute him now.
Perfect.
Hi, David.
Hi, can you hear me?
We
Yeah.
can.
Great. I'll be cognizant of everyone's time. I won't keep you long. I just wanted to let you know that we are working diligently as a board, a staff, and membership to try to come to a decision as to what direction we're going to go in. We're meeting daily at this point and having regular conversations with the mayor's office and the governor's office to ensure that we put the health and security of all those that attend our events and all the New Yorkers that support us as top priority. And as we know more, we'll be sure to keep everyone updated. In the meantime, Zoe and the team has been working very hard at moving the agenda forward in a cautious manner. So I'll let her talk to some of the decisions that have been made or the work she's been doing surrounding the route. But if you have any questions for me, I am here.
Thank you, David.
All right, Zoe, wherever you are.
She should be. I unmuted her. Zoe? Oh, you're muted again.
Hi, everybody. Thank you
Hey,
so much
Zoe.
for your time. And Jesse, thank you so much for putting me on the agenda today. I'm also very appreciative of the last two items on the agenda. It was very informative to be here for this meeting. When Heritage of Pride was added to this agenda, it was prior to everybody working remote. So I hope to add something that you can all look forward to moving forward into our lives. So I shared some maps with Jesse. Normally, if I was here in person, this would be an opportunity for me to open up the floor to see if anybody had any direct feedback on what they experienced in the 2019 March route for the World Pride and Stonewall 50 year. But I guess we could just jump into 2020 plans. If there's anything anybody has major concerns about, you can always shoot me an email at zoe@nycpride.org, and I would be happy to speak with you directly.
One thing is I was having that the chat function only be sent to me, but I think what I'm going to do is I will make it open to the public at this point. So Zoe, if you want to type in your email, that's helpful. Unfortunately, Zoom right now, I think because of their new security measures, does not allow me to put in links to people's emails or even documents. So people just unfortunately will have to write it down the old fashioned way.
Sounds good. And I'd be happy to shoot it into the chat for everybody to write down. It's not super difficult. I will also throw in my direct desk line as well.
Zoe, do you want me to open up the slides you sent me?
That would be great. Thank you so much.
No problem. Give me 1 second.
And just,
Sorry.
while Jesse's doing that, I'm gonna let everyone know you can just copy the chat, which is what most people do in the meeting, because then they'll capture all the information that they're looking for. So you can just highlight and copy the chat, and then you've got everyone's email, name, contacts.
Okay, let's jump into this, everybody.
Beautiful.
So we are going off the route idea, the route concept from 2019, but we are shortening the length of the route in total. So we're going to start in the same location as last year, on the east side. That formation footprint will be the same general area, but we're reducing a few streets so as to not disturb the neighborhoods as much as we did last year. So starting at 25th Street and 5th Avenue will be our grandstand and step-off moment. We're going to head south on 5th Avenue until we get to 8th Street, where we will cross over, do that weird little turn to get to Christopher, where we will pass the Stonewall Inn. We will hang a right onto 7th Avenue, and this is where it'll start to affect your neighborhoods, and head north to our end point. Our accessible seating area is the same as the last 2 years at the St. Vincent's Triangle Park, home of the AIDS Memorial. And the official end of the march route is going to be 14th Street and 7th Avenue. However, our dispersal footprint is a little bit north from that. So Jesse, you can jump over to the next so we can do a zoom in of that footprint. So what you'll see here is, so you'll see 14th Street down there at the bottom, the official end of the route. And then NYPD will be closing down 15th Street from 8th to 7th to 6th Avenue. That will not be a location where we are activating on, but they will be closed to the general public. So you'll get to have really clean streets if you live on 15th Street. Then from 16th to 19th will be what we are utilizing to disperse the event. Similar to last year, we will be sending people on foot and float units or bus units, those larger things that have to get broken down, will be sent towards 8th Avenue. Standard size vehicles will be sent towards 6th Avenue. So you'll see those purple arrows on 16th, 17th, and 18th. That's where we'll send general SUV sized cars to hang a right, hit 6th Avenue, go north to 23rd Street where they can cross and get out of town. On the west side of things, we'll have marchers on foot being dispersed on 16th Street and 18th Street. That will only be humans on foot. And our float units will be sent down 17th and 19th Street. Those floats will need to park for approximately half an hour each so that they can unload the equipment so that they're street legal. And then they will hit 8th Avenue and head north or continue going west until they get to the highway to get out of town. As far as things that we are activating in this area, we intend to have informational purpose booths on 16th and 17th Street, as well as a small talent holding and catering area for our volunteers on 17th Street. These will be very small tent activations with very light generator power. And ideally, the event, well, we're gonna start at 11 a.m. this year as opposed to noon. So we're hoping to have this all out of your hair by sunset.
Cool.
Sounds good.
Pretty big changes to the amount of floats that are in the event. Last year we had 160. This year we're going down to 80 total. Those tend to be the units that really slow down the event in general. So we're making some other changes internally to try to expedite this entire experience for both the participants as well as neighborhood impact.
And I do know you already met with the Chelsea Council Block Associations, and there weren't any major questions or issues for the people that live right in those neighborhoods. I don't know.
And we have two hands raised, just so you know. We have,
Yep.
well, I think we have Alan, Blake, and I believe actually Eric Botcher raised his hand, but I don't see it now. So, yep, his hand is raised.
All right, why don't we call on Alan first?
Thank you, Inga. Hi, Zoe. Good to see you again.
Hey, Alan.
So at that last CCVA meeting, I asked about accessible seating on Fifth Avenue. Any plans on that? Have you been able to work a location out?
So yes, we are going to have an accessibility seating area on 8th Street, like right on that turn on 8th and 5th Avenue. It's just not something that we have officially permitted just yet. So
okay,
we're still working out those plans, but yes, we're going to have accessible seating there. We're also going to carve out a space at our grandstand as well.
Super. Thank you. Thank you very much. Good luck on it.
Thanks.
Do you want me to go down to the next person?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay. Okay, give me 1 second. I'm sorry. Just I'm gonna go to Eric just because he raised his hand first. Eric?
Hi, Zoe.
Hey, Eric.
Thank you for coming. I just wanted to, we should have a meeting with some of the individual block associations. I guess it would be a Zoom meeting, and the precinct and the mayor's office and Jesse and whomever else, just to kind of dig into the details about you know, what the plan is specifically. So maybe I'll have John Blasco reach out to you, and we'll set that up.
That sounds great. And as Inga mentioned, like I did speak with the Chelsea Block Association just before we were all sent to work from home. And meeting here with the Community Board 4, this is really just a platform, I feel, to give everybody a heads up or to express their concerns prior to this being public knowledge.
Thank you.
All right, give me 1 second, sorry. All right. Blake, you're on.
Hey, thank you for the presentation. One thing that's sort of adjacent to the route is the status of queer-owned businesses and spaces for queer businesses in the neighborhood. And, you know, as part of the planning, given that a lot of these businesses, especially local businesses that serve the queer community, you know, are really struggling. You know, if you are able to find a way to incorporate them in your planning, for example, you know, if you have the ability to stream in the parade into businesses with TVs like gay bars, you know, I think something like that might also help to support businesses that aren't necessarily in the area of the parade route, but, you know, will allow people from throughout the neighborhood and businesses throughout the neighborhood to participate.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds fantastic. We do broadcast live the march from 12 noon to 3 p.m. on ABC7. We also have been working really hard these past few years to build out a fantastic Pride Partners program. I would love to hear your suggestions for businesses that I can speak to maybe get involved in that partnerships program. So if you want to just shoot me an email, maybe we can start sending emails back and forth or set up a call to discuss folks that maybe we would really want to endorse in this event.
Great. Yeah, thank you.
Zoe, I can't virtually raise my hand, so I just have to do it the old-fashioned way. I just like to express, I think, what Eric touched on too, and I think you and I discussed this too, but I just want to do it in a public setting. You know, I think, you know, we appreciate all of the efforts you guys have done over the last few years on this new route and the outreach and the coordination with Corey's office about, you know, on some of the hotspot issues. And so my only concern is I think you guys did you did a lot of work in response to the community in terms of your setup zones, in terms of noise and managing people. And I just want to express that I hope the same amount of level of attention work is going to be on the disbursement area, just because that is the key spot that really was a hot spot 2 years ago when it was the setup area, right? So, you know, I think it can be like everybody's, you know, you're sort of setting yourself up in a way of like having to really, you know, for Heritage of Pride to have to be really on top of their game all the way through, right? Because you can't sort of like, oh, well, you can't let yourself slide at the end if you're going to let thousands of people through those blocks, you know, being as loud as they want. And doing what they, you know, whatever they like. So I will just say that that's something we would hope there would be a lot of coordination on and thought. So, and I know there will be. So I'm just publicly stating it.
100%. And you know, Jesse, we've definitely spoke about this in a more private meeting, but I'm happy to do it in a public setting. When groups register to participate, we've actually incorporated a waiver that they must sign off on in regards to sound policy that includes the setup area as well as that breakdown area. Where it does explicitly say, well, for setup, if they don't follow it, we have the authority to remove them from the event. And as far as the breakdown area, which is this neighborhood that we're discussing now, it would prevent this group from participating in the next year's event. So we are really putting down some strict lines around sound. I know that's been an issue for years and years and years, and we are doing our best to maintain everybody.
Thank you. All righty.
Any questions for Zoe? So we're going to move on. Our last presentation on an issue that is an eyesore, disturbing, pain in the butt. We've been working on it. Blake's been taking the lead on this for us. And we're happy to have two folks who have been at the forefront of the fight against these boxes from the Midtown South Community Council, John Mudd and Sharon Jaspriza. Just for transparency, just want to let you know I am a member of the board of this great organization. So I'm going to turn it over to John, and you're going to give us an overview of what this has been.
You're
what you're
sharing
doing
it with me?
about it.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Nice to be here. Thanks, Alan. That was a nice introduction. I like that. Should I pop up, share the should I share the proposal? Is everybody familiar with the proposal? I imagine some people aren't.
We've all gotten it in our Dropboxes, so I'm pretty sure most folks have looked at it.
Okay, great. Okay, so anyway, this goes way back several years, and by the way, everybody shares the same sentiment from all across the boards, community board and everything. I think the plastic kiosk boxes that has the newspaper, we've always had problems, and we've had a clutter up of them in our area, and it was it was very profiled in a lot of especially on 40th Street, 40th and 8th Avenue. We had a clutter of boxes there right on the corner, and that was a hot zone for homeless people who were, homeless, and they were using them to sleep on, to hang out, and then they were using the kiosk, and it just created a real tough corner for anybody to walk by and use. So with the help of a lot of people, everybody writing letters and communicating the problem, we were able to remove these boxes from that corner just with goodwill from it took a little pushing. I mean, the distributors weren't happy about moving them, but with a constant pressure and emails and letters, and we were able to get them to go along with us, and they all pretty much went, took them away without any kind of legal or fight, within the courts or anything like that. They just removed them. And when the two major ones removed their kiosks, I shouldn't call them kiosks, dispensers, that really everyone else followed suit. And then when someone else popped up one, I was able to call them and talk with them, and they would remove their boxes. So we had a clean corner there, and then of course this is a problem for every area in Manhattan, and the history goes, they've tried to remove these before, and they had a tough push from the publishers, but now I think we're in a different age, a different time period. A lot of things are going online. So in the proposal, I did the research, I did research of what other people were doing, and what I discovered between the lawsuits and so forth, if you try to parse it out, the legalities, if you try to permit some and not the others, the courts would knock it down. In some areas, they were able to remove any kind of containers in some states, and because the opinion is that the boxes aren't First Amendment rights, freedom of speech. It's the papers, it's the news source, and I don't know about you guys, but I remember when they were in newsstands and so forth, and how we got to this level, I'm not sure, but we got there. And so my personal view is you go and have them removed across. You do the fight, legal and whatever, and fight them through the courts. I think a lot of them are going by the wayside anyway, because like I said, a lot of papers are merging and a lot of papers are going online. But Gail, we had a meeting with Gail, had a meeting with DOT. Wendy was there, and the advocate's office at the time. And I brought the garment district with me, and we had a discussion about it. They reviewed the proposal. They liked the proposal, and my opinion was that let's go, and I consulted some legal people, and I thought, well, we should just kind of go with removing them all. But they weren't quite prepared to fight that battle, even though it's been a long time since we've had that fight with the publishers. And so the route that we all decided to take was more restrictions, more tighter restrictions, and there were some recommendations in there, and so what's happening now at this present, it's been in the legal department with DOT. Wendy had sent me the last correspondence with her is first of all, she wants everybody to be, encourage everybody to make those 311 calls. The data is very important. I mean, everywhere, anywhere, just make the 311 calls. That gives them a little support. And what she's saying here is they've worked on the legislation. They're consolidating a number of terms and adding some concepts to help improve the process. Is a strong working document in her opinion. So she feels good about the legal, the documents that they're preparing. Now this has been, I think this was back in February, end of February, and I'm sure this, of course, what's happening now has put a crinkle in things, but I think we're, you know, I'll reach out to her for some more updates, but I think we're kind of waiting for it to come out of legal. Sharon, you have anything to add? Oh, she's nodding. She's on mute.
Sharon Jaspriza.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm sorry. I took her off before, but I guess
she was probably trying to come in and save me a few times there too. Go ahead, Sharon. Can you?
She's
Sharon?
Yeah, we have a technical pitch. We'll work it out.
Okay. Are you there, Sharon?
She's there. I'm just trying to unmute her.
Still. Okay.
And I'm not sure why, unless she has herself muted.
Check, see, yeah. Okay.
There you go.
There we go.
Thank you. Well, thank you. I just wanted
Sorry
to say
about that.
a couple of things. Thank you very much for having us. And even though we're supposed to be living in the moment, Zoe, I love hearing about the future in this time, in the crisis. So thank you for that wonderful presentation. The proposal was broken up into 4 sections. So if you haven't had a chance to read it, it's quite enlightening. The introduction was fairly straightforward in terms of what the problem is and what the objective of the proposal is. Then we looked at what the problems were citywide, nationwide, what the managerial negligence was, what the public health and safety, welfare and safety issues were. And then the third part of it was the regulatory review. So we looked at regulations and legislation, which was what John was talking about. And then, of course, presented solutions and in terms of enforcement, designs, new design alternatives, cooperatives, public empowerment and legal. But what was really interesting was some of the design and alternatives. We looked at San Francisco, the Department of the Public over there, the GDA, they've got some designs of the 34th Street Partnership with Grand Central. And then we looked at some of the advantages of having new designs was extra sidewalk space, improved aesthetics. It stopped misuse, as you've seen some people will misuse them. And then it provides job opportunities too. And one of the other results of all of this is less enforcement is needed. But as a result of the COVID-19 crisis, I'm kind of thinking that a lot of these businesses may not come through all of this and may not need the newsstands anymore. And with people going online more now because of COVID-19, possibly, you know, newspapers in the old format won't be required. So it might solve itself with some luck.
I think one of the things that the DOT and who, you know, with its legal and the support is when they do come out with these rules and regulations, they want to beat down any opposition to at least the rules and regulations. And certainly, I think if we all got together all across the board, I think, again, I really, my preference is to get these boxes off the streets. Let's clean up the sidewalks. I think we have way too much on the sidewalks, and it's not really pedestrian friendly. And so I wanted to leave that thought. That's I was hoping that they'd want to, you know, jump in there and fight for that. But if the community board, I think, pursued that with all the other community boards, and I think it's a good possibility to win that fight.
So John, let me jump in for a second. So what I'm hearing you saying is that, which is what we had intended to try to do before this whole thing came down on us, was to get the community, the various block associations and community groups out there, kind of getting the data, as you said, and getting that out on the street. So hopefully at some point in time, we're going to pick up on that.
How would you, besides just getting data and informing people, could we do a marketing push together?
So let me do this, because Blake's been working on this with you and with 34th Street Partnership. So what I'd like to do at this point is maybe bring him in. Let Blake just talk a little bit about what he's been doing, and I'm sure, you know, you guys have been in touch together. So. And then we'll see if there's any questions, you know, going forward on that. So if Jesse wants to unmute Blake, and, you know, there he is. Okay, he's unmuted. Okay.
Thank you very much, John and Sharon. And, you know, I spoke with both of them early on in the process as well, and it really helped me to get educated on the issue. So, you know, I appreciate both the proposal and the time you took earlier to talk to me. So, you know, we took a couple of different approaches from the community board perspective, one of which was talking to the 34th Street Partnership about their news rack design and the potential to replicate that further, you know, trying to bring down the cost if it's at greater scale. Obviously, the challenge there is funding for something like that. You know, it'd have to be a business improvement district or some other sort of corporate sponsorship. And then the second approach is also the community outreach that Alan was mentioning. You know, I think through block associations, trying to encourage folks to submit reports of news racks that are not in compliance, even with the current regulation, and both encouraging them to call in 311 to get that on the record, as well as to try to work out with the publisher. You know, I was going to compile all of these reports and send them to the publishers, and, you know, at least in Hell's Kitchen, it seems to be concentrated amongst, you know, 5 or so publishers that have the most news racks in violation, and, you know, trying to show that these boxes are both an eyesore for their brand as well as not in compliance with the current regulation. You know, obviously this has become sort of an untenable time to do this sort of walking around the streets and reporting news racks. So hopefully we can pick it back up, you know, when we're able to get on the streets a little more. I'm curious if you could talk a bit more about the DOT's appetite for enforcement, because, you know, even if there are stricter regulations or regulations against having these news racks, I'm just wondering about your thoughts on, you know, whether there would be the capability as well as the appetite for actually enforcing those rules.
Yeah, you know, they can put the rules and regulations in, but where are the oversight? And that's what we've, you know, and it's hard. I understand from their viewpoint with what the rules we have now. You know, they can always send out, they can ticket, they can send out notices, they can inform them, and they can go out there and fix it just to cure that problem. But then what you got to do is you got to start all over again. You got to, you point it out, and then they go out, you know, they can, they've got too much room to correct the problem and ignore the problem too. And that's been a problem with the laws, the regulations in place now. And I haven't seen the legal document. I don't know. And we've talked about that, with the advocate's office, Gail Brewer, and when we were in that meeting, we talked about this, and they did take a real hard look at the proposal. And and Wendy, I think she's a wonderful person there, and I'm inclined to trust her as far as having teeth, but then when it gets time, but there's always an out, and there's always a way to work around it, I think. And then of course, you're going back to your question, the oversight. We're finding problems with oversight in every aspect. I mean, Sharon and I work on homeless and housing, and as some of you know, and the oversight is really hard to get people on it, and who's gonna dig in there and force these conditions. What kind of penalties are really going to make them straighten up and fly right? I mean, where are they going to, where are they going to fine them? Thousands of dollars or something? I don't think they're going to go that far. I can't see it. But again, I guess it's in the whatever in the rules. We'll have to wait and see what they are. And that's why, and going back to your 34th Street partnership thing, I think their boxes are really huge. I've talked to them. I know they got some single boxes, and it's great to use their boxes as a template. We were working on the bike racks and using theirs. I like theirs. They're slim, but I think the newspaper stands are, of course, they're big, and also they're bulky, and they take up a lot of room if you're looking to put 4 different media, papers or whatever into those boxes. They're pretty huge. The 2s are a little slimmer, but and they might work great in plazas, but I think, again, you're taking away, I think we should look to get everything off. What can we consolidate? Get as much as we can off these sidewalks. It's great what they're doing, moving out into the streets. I thought that was wonderful, and I guess they saw that coming. But I mean, we can put the money into those boxes, and some of them can go away. And the way the rules are now, if you allow us, you build boxes for a select few, and you got a few more boxes, but what happens when, say, some small paper you never heard of decides they want some presents? They can pop up there. You can't stop them from popping up because you've got, then you're discriminating, and then that's illegal. And then
so it sounds like it's more legislative in a sense. But I see we're joined by Maureen R., who's kind of like been agreeing with a lot of things you've been saying. I don't know if Maureen wants to jump in on this conversation right now. Yeah.
Oh, it needs a mute. Yeah.
Yeah. Jesse, could you unmute Maureen?
Great, thank you. I just wanted to say that I'm part of the block association at 200 block and 300 block in the 20s. And we're having a real issue with the link NYC, and those things are being used, all the newspaper racks are being used as like offices for people to sit on them. And we tried to bring that up in another meeting with the DOT board a couple of months ago. So this is definitely linked to that, and anything you can tell us that we can be doing besides 311, which I already have done, but any other things that we can be doing to try to help mitigate this big problem, eyesore, safety issue, and now the fact that it's really polluting the ability for people just to move past those link NYCs, it would be really great.
Okay. I'll tell you what we did for 40th Street, besides having letters from Corey Johnson's office, from Gail Brewer's, from all that. They sent letters. We had meetings with DOT, had meetings with the DOT and links in at the time, DOT. And then what I did was we reached out to the publishers, and I can give you their emails. We talked about the problems. I sent pictures after pictures, and when they continue to receive pictures of people sleeping on them, sitting on them, turned over, and then they went back and forth, wanted to do some quick fixes, and we had arguments. The garment district was trying to keep it clean, and then there's the hawkers, and so it was just a complete mess. And then they my point was, is this how you want to represent your paper? Is this how you want to represent your brand? I can send you some of those correspondences too. And after several months and emailing and getting to the publishers themselves, they decided this might not be the fight they wanted to have. And so they took them away, and they did this on their own. And then, of course, I followed up with praises. You have these people working with you, so you want to highlight that, because you don't want them to return, because they have the right to return when you don't have any kind of legislation in process or any set agreements. So that's what I did with them. But if you got to constantly turn up the heat, I think, with the communications. If it's once a week, and then try to communicate with them, speak to them. I think they all kind of see where some of this stuff is going away. I think, and you have hawkers there on that corner too. No, that might be a little more difficult, because what most of the papers were distributed through the hawkers. On some of these corners, maybe they rely on people actually picking up their papers. And if that's the case, that might be a harder push. But it doesn't hurt to try, and I'll certainly help you with that. I'll give you all the documents. Sharon, any ideas?
John, let me jump in here for a second. Maureen, DOT comes under the auspices of our Transportation Committee. I don't know if you've been in touch with them. They've been working on these link things for a long time. They have a meeting coming up, I think it's next Monday on the 20th, I think. Is that right, Jesse? Is it, well, you go onto our website.
I'm sorry, you're talking about their committee meeting?
Yeah.
Their committee meeting is this Wednesday.
Oh, it's this Wednesday, I'm sorry. You may want to, since how easy it is to get online now and get involved with it, is to bring it up at the end of their meeting. That's the Transportation Committee, and just add what you have already been doing and want to do.
Yeah, when it comes to, by the way, when it comes to the kiosk, it take a little pushing, but you can get them to adjust some of the access to it. And Stacy from DOT is a contact that works with us, and I can put you in touch with her. I mean, they won't readily do it, and they won't be eager to do it. But if you present enough of a case, of what's going on there on a regular basis, they will adjust some of the access. I mean, right now, I think 40th Street has, you can plug in a phone and use it, but you can't use it from the dashboard. And believe it or not, that cut down a good 80% of the use. And so these things are very helpful.
Okay, John, we're going to move on. We have one piece of new business we want to get to before we all say goodnight. And it's been an interest.
Alan, I'm sorry, quick. You have Blake has raised his hand. So.
Oh, I'm sorry, Blake. I didn't notice. Go ahead. Shoot.
Sorry. Yeah, really quick. I had requested that DOT speak at the trans meeting. I think it got kind of pushed back because of the the situation, obviously. But I think we need to shed more light on their enforcement by looking at how many reports there are, how many of the reports are investigated, how many of the investigative reports turn into penalties for the publisher. And I think if the Trans committee, specifically requested those stats and a presentation on that, that might be a good place to start to see, are they following up, and is it getting to the publisher, that there are these racks that are not being enforced. And I think in conjunction with our reporting program, or your reporting push, once the situation clears up, I think those two things can assert some pressure both on DOT as well as the publishers.
I think
okay,
that's
so
excellent.
Maybe we could use this time that we have now to maybe off, during the course of the next couple of weeks, hopefully when we're all back out on the street at some future time, work together, put a program together, get some data together, get the block associations online, getting ready to go out there and do some of the legwork that we'll need to do and do that. So maybe we'll try to, we'll stay in touch as the days go by. Maybe we could have a separate meeting or something down the road on this. So just to finish up, we have a piece of new business, back to education. Josephine distributed a letter that she was asking us to support. So I'm going to turn it over to Josephine, and we can discuss it or see what you think about it, and take it away,
Thank you,
Josephine.
Alan. I actually have great, quick, updated news on that front.
So we don't need to support it anymore?
No, you don't.
Oh.
The short of it is that Maggie Moroff, who is with Advocates for Children, her team was in touch with the DOE over the weekend. And the DOE is now promising that they will listen to families in regards to their needs, that their kids who have special education needs, that they will allow for family input. And they also sent a letter to principals saying that families can contact them about that. So that's all they really wanted. They just needed to be heard, and they worked very quickly over this weekend. So far, they're okay.
All right. A reasonable choice on the part of DOE.
Yes, I believe so. Yes.
Making headway, I think. I don't know, Anga, you want to, anything to add? You want to?
I have nothing to add. I just want to thank everyone for showing up, and hopefully even when we do someday get back to normal, we can keep these online, because I think we get a lot more attendance this way. So
At least we don't have to go out in the rain.
yeah, true.
Mm-hmm.
We just need a motion. Sorry, Alan, you go. I thought we were going to go on.
We have a motion to close out and go home.
Yes.
Second. Oh, Judith is
No.
right, Judith. Okay. Thank you. Matt, you want to leave us with any words of wisdom on your end from what's going on or something? Maybe you want to give Matt a chance to say a few words. Jesse.
Who's Matt? Who?
Matt T.
Matt Ty?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
He's been very patient. He's been, I know he wants to say something here.
Oh, okay. I did not know he wanted to say something. Sure.
Hold on there.
Muted.
Yeah, I think he's muted himself. I can't unmute him if he's up. There we go. Hey, Matt.
Hey. If anyone needs any assistance from our office, we are available every day of the week. Particular, if anyone knows anyone needs assistance with unemployment insurance, that's probably the biggest concern we're seeing day to day, and we can absolutely help people, guide folks through that process.
Thank you very much, Matt.
All right, cool.
All right, so everyone have a good night.
Okay, thank you.
So there's a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Adjourn.
Thank you. Thank you all.
All right.
Yeah.
Good night, everyone. Thank you. Stay safe.